Heather, let me start with you as, in a way, the mother of us all on this. I mean, I'm sure everybody looking at you has been influenced by you and your writings and your expertise on this subject. And you are somebody who has told the truth from the beginning, been called every name in the book, only to be proven right time and time again. And so when you hear Van Jones and others like him look at this situation with that absurd recitation about hurt people, what's your thought?
I agree with you totally, Megan. I think this has got to be the end. The elites have been perpetrating a complete lie, which is that white people are the biggest threat facing Black people today, that the criminal justice system is racist, that we live in a white supremacist society. That lie has given them enormous power. And the lie is what gave us the unbelievably heart-wrenching death of Ms. Zarutska, because based on the lie of criminal justice system racism, we have been decriminalizing, we have been deprosecuting long before George Floyd. But after the George Floyd race riots, it became an absolute mania. And we are refusing to inflict just punishment because doing so will have a disparate impact on Black criminals. And the Roy Coopers of the world, who you mentioned, that introduced racial equity considerations into North Carolina and Charlotte, that we're incarcerating too many Black and Hispanic criminals. They are the embodiment of that lie. And let's just look again at the statistics, Megan. It cannot be further from the truth. President Biden, President Obama used to go around saying that Black parents were right to fear that their children would be killed every time they stepped outside, implicitly by either a police officer or a white person. No, the reality of interracial crime is exactly the opposite. It is what we have seen in this video. This video is a synecdoche for the reality of America. In 2023, the National Academy of Sciences, a liberal left elite institution, published a report authored by, among others, Bruce Western, who is a leftist at Columbia University, that said that the amount of white on Black homicides in the United States was so negligible to not really even be measurable statistically, whereas Blacks are 35 times more likely to commit an act of violence against whites than whites against Blacks. Nevertheless, we have been told by the New York Times, by CNN, that it is Blacks who are victimized by our system. That has given the elites power to overturn every Western standard of excellence, of merit, of behavior, of criminal justice. And I hope you're right, and I think you have to be. It's over now.
Mm-hmm. This must be the end of the fever dream. The Van Jones soundbite would have played in 2020. I'll play it now, Allie Beth, and then get your take on it. It would have played in 2020. It's too late for these kinds of lies. Here it is.
We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, is just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. You mentioned the thing about cashless bail. I think this is a big challenge that we have. Would you have felt better if there had been cash bail and the mom had come and put down $1,000 to let him out? It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people.
Your thoughts, Allie Beth?
This is a prime example of that toxic empathy. Empathy turns toxic when it encourages you to do at least two things, and that is validate lies and support destructive policies. And it encourages you to ignore the true victim in every situation and instead victimize the criminal or the perpetrator of wrong. And this false narrative that we've heard for many decades, but of course accelerated over the past 5 years, that we have this basic binary dichotomy in the United States of Black oppressed and white oppressor, and that everything, every situation, every news story has to be examined through that lens, has supported policies that have led to deaths like this one. Even in the Christian world, in the evangelical world, we certainly saw in 2020 and still see today one message toward the white congregants, which is one of collective guilt, a collective need for repentance of the sins of America and the sins of our white ancestors, and a complete abdication of responsibility toward their more melanated congregants, a sermon of apology toward them, and a message of guilt toward white privilege or guilt about systemic racism toward their white congregants. And that message, especially over the past half decade, has breathed life into the kinds of policies that have led to unjust murders like this one. And so, yes, of course, it is a huge political issue. It is a huge systemic issue, but we've got spiritual and theological problems in the United States that is leading to this kind of bloodshed. It's got to change on every single level.
Yes, Megan, I know you've been talking about this too over at Daily Wire. And I have to tell you, I talked about this openly. I'm Catholic, and going through the process of getting an annulment on my first marriage. And my ex-husband and I are friends, and he's on board. But in the process, I had a bit of a crisis of faith, because it just sort of dawned on me, as my evangelical friends would already argue, why do I have to go through the middleman? Like, what is the point of getting this middleman to bless the dissolution of this? And I had a moment of searching for other churches within the Christian faith. I might consider this one, I might consider that one. And I'm telling you, literally every church I went to, just to try them out, had a pride flag on the outside of it and a BLM flag. A pride flag and BLM. And it was unbelievable how the Christian community has bent the knee to this lie, to these lies about policing in America and what our obligations are as people of faith on this whole narrative.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you bring that up, that Allie brings that up, because it's an important point to know that I don't believe that these policies, which have been floated by the left for many, many years, they've been promoted, they've been pushed, but they were allowed to take hold in the wake of George Floyd because you had people who were known as Christian conservatives, for example, using their platforms to push what was a false narrative, which was that George Floyd died because of racism in the policing system. We now know that there was not a shred of evidence that race played any role in his death. And so these were the people who were able to give that movement a moral imperative it didn't have when it was just Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton talking about it. And, one of the things I want to emphasize for people as a Charlotte native is that this was a safe area of town. It's a very trendy restaurants, trendy shops and boutiques. We go there frequently on the weekend. So you can't escape the impact of these policies, if that's what you're thinking. This was not a dangerous part of town. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that Governor Roy Cooper and our then Attorney General, now Governor Josh Stein, responded to the death of George Floyd in another state more quickly than they responded to the death of Iryna Zarutska, who was a resident of their own state, who they are responsible for. So within 2 weeks, Governor Roy Cooper had called for a racial equity task force to overhaul our criminal justice system here in North Carolina. And the things that it put in place were things like pretrial release, cashless bail, decriminalizing homelessness and quote unquote public behavior. So being a public menace on the streets, the very kinds of things that DeCarlos Brown was arrested for. So when that was going on, and you have, let's be clear, this is the Bible Belt. North Carolina is the Bible Belt. This is Southern Baptist land. So when you have that going on, and then you have the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, which is the largest Protestant denomination in the U.S., represents some 14 million Americans, get up into the pulpit, get up onto platforms represented by the Southern Baptist Convention and release public letters saying, you are a bad Christian. you are not a loving Christian if you don't support this overhaul of our criminal justice system in the name of racial equity. Well, you have a lot of people in the pews who are looking at them going, well, these are conservative Christians like me. And they say, I'm not loving my neighbor if I don't embrace these policies. So that's what I believe was really the difference with George Floyd, why these policies that were being pushed for a long time were suddenly allowed to take effect even by people who would consider themselves conservatives, because who wants to be called a bad Christian? Who wants to say they don't love their black neighbor? So that was really a tipping point, I think. And the appalling thing to me is that you had so many of those faith leaders participating in that lie, and that it cost people in their own backyard, and they've largely been silent about it now.
When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold? Well, you'd be right. Whether as a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold. And so they created something special. Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit right now. Just text MK to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for a rebate in free metals of up to $10,000. So make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before September 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and get your free info kit. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.